With a very sad co-host today. I'm flying Ryan Gokers along with.
Tampa Motor Mouth Joel Verone trying to figure out what the bleep is going on with the Bucs.
Yeah, the hits keep coming. They were already down all of their secondary, and then they lose Shaq Barrett to a torn Achilles last night. That's the big injury news of the day.
Yeah, and the whole point of that game is that was a very weird, deceptive game because you had, of course, the first quarter, and all of a sudden you thought, okay, maybe they've turned the corner, maybe they can come back, maybe they can win the game. You had Chris Godwin with the nice catch. You had Mike Evans actually showing up amazingly
Yep.
enough and was actually the lead wide receiver of the game. But then you had just two quarters with just okay, what happened to the offense? Quarter
I
one, they
think
did
that's
something,
coaching.
and then all of a sudden, the fourth quarter, you had, and here's the kicker: they actually could have won when you had that touchdown taken away by the penalty. And you can correct me wrong. I think it was Leonard Fournette who had a false start,
Yeah.
and that absolutely negated the freaking miracle throw that Tom Brady had. That could have won the Bucs the game. Instead, they end up dropping it to the Ravens at home, and I'm yeah, I think you had to be a little bit uh, fearful about being a reporter. I think asking Tom Brady the tough questions after that loss because
Yeah.
I think he was
He
had
had a
his
bad
face in
day.
his hands in his locker, was seen talking to Blaine Gabbert for a couple of minutes, and just you're trying to figure out. I mean, you have you have the craziness, the crazy thing coming out of all of this is that Panthers and Falcons game is going to be for first place for the division. That's how bad the Bucs are. That's the craziness of this whole year for
Yeah.
the NFC South.
If the Panthers win, they will be 3-5, but have the tiebreakers over both the Bucks and the Falcons, and first place at 3-5. And if Atlanta wins, it'll be 4-4. It'll be a game clear of the Bucks, and they will be in first place. So, Tom Brady, a bad night last night, probably worst day today, as they officially is divorced.
Oh,
Some of that hand in their head in the hand stuff might have been personal interest related outside of the field of football, but yeah, Shaq Barrett, a big loss going forward, out for the season. He was actually having a very good game. I think the coaching is the big difference here. I think Harbaugh figured out at halftime what to do because you saw the rushing explosion in the second half.
and
And
because the defense actually had their shining moments because you ended up having that special team. I don't know what the hell that was, but that special team. Let's cough up the
yeah,
football. There it goes, and all of a sudden it was in guaranteed land for the Baltimore Ravens. You're going, okay, here comes seven. You're like, holy crap, they came away
oh,
with three, and so it's just you got to hand it to the short-handed defense who I really think carried the entire team because I just don't know you because the offense with the sloppy penalties that took away the touchdown, just some of the miscues. I mean, I don't know how much do you fault the offense? How much do you fault Brady, who I know who's trying his guts out, but
yeah, it's a tough night for the Bucks. I think there's plenty of blame to go all around. I do think it lands at the feet of the head coach. But let's go over some stats. Lamar Jackson, 27 to 38 passing, 238 yards, two touchdowns for the air, also chipped in 43 yards on the ground. Gus Edwards, Mark Andrews, and Rashad Bateman all were active last night to start the game, and not a single one of them finished it. Gus Edwards, 65 yards, but Kenny Drake, 7 carries for 62 in relief, also had a receiving touchdown. So Kenny Drake, a good fantasy night as well. Mark Andrews was getting targeted. He left the game very early with a new injury, a shoulder injury, not considered serious. 3 catches on 5 targets left in the first quarter, though. 33 yards, and his replacement, Isaiah Likely, 6 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown. If Mark Andrews loses a lot of time to this injury, Isaiah Likely has massive, massive amounts of upside. It doesn't sound like Andrew's going to miss a lot of time. The bye week is in week 10, so if he misses time, it'll only probably be week 9, but keep that in mind. Robinson, 6 catches for 64 yards, the other big performer for the Ravens. Now, as we go to the Bucs, Tom Brady, 26 of 44, but just 1 touchdown and 325 yards passing. That has been the bane of his fantasy game all season, not getting those touchdowns.
Can you trust Tom Brady at all in going forward in fantasy?
If you have him, you probably have to play him because he's going to be better than on waivers. And like we had said yesterday, between Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady has the best chance of turning around because he does have Chris Godwin and
you don't think he's approached droppable yet.
He's approached it. I don't know if he's quite there. It depends on your other options. If you can go and pick up a Tua, you can go and pick up a Geno. You might have to consider it, but for the most part, Brady is going to be decent enough. I mean, no interceptions, 325 yards and a passing touchdown didn't kill you. But it's not what you really, really want. I mean, Lamar Jackson had over 20 points. Tom Brady had about 17. And that's just the difference in the rushing, really. Leonard Fournette, speaking of rushing, 9 carries, 24 yards, and a touchdown.
Because if you look at what one of the biggest differentials, I think, was a time of possession for both teams. That really stands out.
That one. Let me find it. That time of possession, 38-23 for the Ravens, 21-37 for the Bucs. That's a recipe to lose. That's actually impressive. It was only a 5-point game. Going back to the rest of the stat line for the Buccaneers.
How the bleep were the Bucs the fit favorite?
Yeah, home team. I don't know why. I didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson came in and roughed off the Bucs in raging.
Yeah. Anyways, Mike Evans, 6 catches, 123 yards. Did have a weird early drop, and I remember you sent me a message saying something's got to be wrong with Evans. I think the defender just flashed in front of his eyes. He couldn't see the ball, lost track of it, hit him in the hands. But a very good game from Mike Evans. And Chris Godwin, 6 catches for 75 yards, both with 11 targets. Outside of that, 3 catches for Fournette for negligible yardage. Rashad White, 3 for 24. Julio Jones did play, got a touchdown, but only 2 catches on 4 targets for 21 yards.
Good thing Fournette doesn't lose points for costing his team a touchdown like he did at the end.
Yeah, so the Ravens win 27-22 in Tampa Bay. They break the win a game, blow a lead, winning the game, blow a lead. They tried to blow the lead, but didn't quite get there this week for the 5th time they've won and the 5th time they tried to blow a lead. And Joel and I both start the week pick-wise at 1-0.
Because if there's one constant in the universe that we know, it's the Bucs are not the same ones that they were when it was Tampa Bay.
I will say this: the Bucs were 3-5 the season they won the Super Bowl, so there is still hope for a turnaround. People were looking at this team then, going, "Oh, what's wrong with Tampa? Is Brady washed?" And a lot of similarities to that team. However, unless that secondary gets healthy, that defense is going to be a liability when they play.
If you don't have a defense, it's like that's going to be very hard for the offense.
Yeah, I mean, you play a team like Arizona or Seattle or the Rams, San Francisco that can put up points in bunches, Minnesota, Dallas, Philadelphia. You're going to struggle with that secondary, or even the Giants. It's going to be tough. The Bucs have an uphill climb. The Ravens, 5-3, can do no worse than a tie for first place in their division after this week. So Baltimore looking like they're starting to get it all together. If they can get Andrews back and Rashad Bateman fully healthy, this will be a dangerous team going forward. Now, as we mentioned, Andrews left with a shoulder injury, Gus Edwards with a hamstring injury. Both are different injuries than they went into the game with reported. And then Rashad Bateman did re-injure his foot in this game. We have to wait and see what goes on long-term with those injuries to see who will and who will not be back for week number 9. Devontae Adams has been sick. He looks like he's got a good shot of playing on Sunday. Darren Waller, hamstring questionable, and Matt Collins, heel, also questionable. All 3 are questionable. I think Adams will play. The other 2 much more in the air. Some of the players already ruled out, and there's some big names on this list already for Sunday. Johan Dotson for the Commanders. Matt Ryan, who was benched. Marshawn Lattimore, Michael Thomas, and Jarvis Landry, all for the Saints. They're not getting any healthier. Chuba Hubbard for the Panthers. So it's a Deontay Foreman. full steam ahead. If you have him, you can probably play him very easily against the Falcons. James Conner for the Cardinals will be missing. Evan Neal, a lineman for the Giants, who's been key to the offense, will be out this week. Deebo Samuel will be missing with that hamstring injury. Cam Akers with the personal, I don't want to be on the Rams issue. And Alan Lazard, not expected to play yesterday, is officially ruled out today. Some news on Jamar Chase. I don't know if you saw this one.
Oh yeah,
Not going
definitely
on
interesting.
IR. Not
Not
going on IR. Did practice today. Has a hip fracture, which does not sound great, and a flexor injury. I do expect him to miss some time, but it doesn't sound like he wants to. Zeke Elliott listed as doubtful. If you ask Jerry Jones, he is out. So adjust your lineups accordingly. You can probably go to your bench right now. On the positive side of things, Lions' DeAndre Swift off the injury report should be good to go against the Dolphins.
St. Brown, not so much.
St. Brown, at least trending in the right direction, has a shot to play after that concussion scare last week. We shall see if he can make it. The Kadarius Toney trade is official. He passed the physical, so he's now a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll see him in week number 9. No timetable on Mike Thomas, but says he'll play this season, and he's working hard to rehab. Did not go into details on the injury, but he's not on injured reserve. So interesting there. Again, Shaq Barrett out with the Achilles tear. Hopefully he'll be back for the start of next season, ready to go. James Conner, again, out with his injury. Hopefully he'll be able to go next week, according to the head coach, Cliff Kingsbury. Let's see. Other big news from yesterday. Ryan Tannehill not ruled out for Sunday against Houston. That could be a big development for the Titans. If it's not him, it'll be Malik Willis's first start, and we'll see what that does to the offense. And that's the biggest news from today on that injury front.
So the question for the Green Bay Packers, because for the second time in 3 weeks, Aaron Jones topped a 70% snap rate, leaving A.J. Dillon below 35%. And the team absolutely were wondering, okay, what's going on with the playmakers on the perimeters? So just the question is, what do you do with Aaron Jones with A.J. Dillon in fantasy?
Aaron Jones, I think you got to play him. He has been good enough that he has earned the opportunity to play on your roster if you have him and you don't have better options, which you probably don't. He's been consistently doing fairly well. Now, A.J. Dillon is borderline droppable if you can afford to do so. Not the worst thing in the world to consider. Just saying, hey, this isn't working out. Goodbye. It's going to be tough for A.J. Dillon to get some trust in your fantasy lineup. You might be backed into a corner, as I am with my Megla Bowl team, because Alan Lazard, Mike Thomas, and James Conner are all out this week, along with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Nicole Hardman on bye. You might have to play him, and if you do, I feel bad for you. But A.J. Dillon's getting very close to droppable. Make sure you get a good replacement if you do end up dropping him. Aaron Jones is about the only person you can still trust for that Packers offense, which is weird because Aaron Rodgers is still there. They still have what you would think is enough pieces to be good, but it's just been Aaron Jones or bust.
Okay, here's another question that is definitely ruled out. So, if you have any shares of Chuba Hubbard, what do you do?
I think you hold for another week, see what Deontay Foreman does. If Foreman goes crazy, he could emerge as the lead in this timeshare. It was going to be Chuba Hubbard. So it's a tough matchup, but you might have a starting running back on your hands when he is healthy. You don't get rid of players like that. That's why people who have been holding like Cordero Patterson for multiple weeks are waiting for him to come back and not dropping him if they have the room because, well, he is too good of a player to just drop. So you're probably going to hold him. It doesn't look like a long-term injury for Hubbard. And when he comes back, he should be good to go and at least be a contributing factor, a flex consideration player. And he's got the upside of being a starting running back, maybe a running back, a low-end one, high-end running back two for your fantasy team.
Okay, and if you had any shares of the Gus Bus, you were probably not too happy last night when you heard a lot of Kenyon Drake action going on. So, what do you do going forward with the Gus Bus?
Well, Gus Edwards was getting a lot of the work before he got hurt. Kenyon Drake did emerge late and put his stamp on this game, but I don't think you worry too much about Gus Edwards. It was the second game back from a big knee injury. I think we expected him to not get all the carries, and then he gets the hamstring injury on top of it. Monitor the situation. Do not cut him. He's going to be the starter. J.K. Dobbins is still several weeks from coming back. Worst case scenario, Gus Edwards is not going to be the starter. Kenyon Drake does somehow take the job, and then you have the option of dropping him later. But as of right now, Gus Edwards is the starter for this team. It's a run-heavy offense. We saw what they did in the second half against Tampa last night. It's not another situation. If he misses time, it's not someone you want to cut. If you have to, you might have to in some cases. There's 6 teams on bye next week, for example. You might have to cut somebody like Gus Edwards to pick up somebody to avoid dropping someone better. But you want to hold him if you have any ability to do so. But
Okay.
at the same time, if Drake is out there, worth looking into.
All right. What do you do that the Titans already seem not to have a passing game, and yeah, you've got a Ryan Tannehill ankle injury that adds some fun to that. So, and not fun of the good kind either. So, other than Derrick Henry, who do you trust in that Tennessee offense? And if you happen to have Ryan Tannehill as your quarterback, what do you do?
Well, I actually, in a super flex league or two, do have Ryan Tannehill as my quarterback. As of right now, I'm expecting to play him, and that is also, option dependent. It's right now Matt Stafford, Ryan Tannehill, and Marcus Mariota are my 3 candidates to play. As of right now, I like Tannehill's matchup a little better, but I can switch to Mariota if I need to. Um, I don't think you trust anybody else in that offense, not named Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is going to be the first and second option as many times as possible. If they can get Robert Woods going, that would be fantastic for this offense as a whole. But as of right now, doesn't look particularly likely that they're going to get anything massive going this week with another player. Hopefully, the Titans will come out of this. Hopefully, Ryan Tannehill can play. He does open that offense, but Malik Mills with that ground game might open things up with the weapon of his legs. Any more questions? Is that all of them?
That's all of them.
All right. So with that, we have 14 more games to pick. Let me get the scoreboard up
Yeah.
here because Joel is still winning by 6, even though I haven't
Is
updated. We both got the
is
game right
this the
last
one
night.
in the background? We go dun 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 dun
Yes.
dun 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 bom bom
And
bom.
we'll start with
And
Mr. High Knees in the
that was
aisle.
a faithful rendition.
Yes. We'll start with Mr. High Knees in the airplane aisle. Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos going to England to play the Jacksonville Jaguars in the last London game of the year. There's still the Germany game between the Bucs and Seattle Seahawks down the line a couple weeks. For the Broncos, I players like Cortland Sutton, Melvin Gordon, Latavius Murray all have to be in consideration, as well as Russell Wilson. He's got the easy schedule the rest of the way. He could turn this around. I don't know if any of them are must starts in this game for the Broncos, but I think if anybody is, it's going to be Cortland Sutton. Keep an eye on Greg Dulcich if you need a tight end. I don't know. Maybe you had Mark Andrews last night and he's now hurt and has a bye in 2 weeks. An interesting pickup. Dulcich on bye next week, though. For the Jaguars, you have Trevor Lawrence, who's been on a little bit of a hot streak for scoring touchdowns on the ground himself. Travis Etienne is now the only lead running back on this team. Yes, there are, Jermichael Hasty and Snoop Connor, but James Robinson now to the Jets. It's Travis Etienne's show. If you have him, now is the time to play him. And then Christian Kirk and Zay Jones at the wide receiver and Evan Ingram at tight end have to be at least considered, but probably not startable options there. It's a London game. It's the annual Jacksonville Jaguars home London game. They've made this trip more than any other team. Denver, 2-5. I think both of these teams are 2-5. So both of these teams desperately need a win to keep any semblance of hope in their season. Denver, I think, is pretty much already out of that division race because Kansas City's not going to fall. I don't think they're going to lose 5 games all year. Jacksonville, they're starting to fall out of it as well. So who gets the win here in jolly old England?
Yes, as a Brett Ripon, of course, favored Jerry Judy over Cortland Sutton last week. And but the question is, who will Russell Wilson favor when he returns to play in London after all of his stretching out on the plane for 4 hours straight. As the other question is, as I'm definitely picking the Jaguars to win, is yeah, by the time the 1 o'clock games start, will Nathaniel Hackett still have a job?
I think he'll still have a job. They usually wait till the day after. And it would be a really awkward flight back from England if they fired him. And I don't know if they would be like, yeah, you're gonna just have to get a commercial flight from here. I do think he has a job until Monday if they lose this game quite badly. It feels weird, but I'm on Jacksonville as well. They do tend to play very well in England, and I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. Denver has a very good defense, but their offense is really bad. Jacksonville's got a sneaky defense that can shut this team down, and I frankly just find myself not believing in Denver, even though they technically should be considered the better team. I just it's hard to have faith in Russell Wilson. So
You just
Broncos
you
Nation,
don't
let's
you
cry.
don't you don't believe in the danger witch.
Nope. Broncos Nation, let's cry. Because you're gonna lose. Anyways, then we come back to the United States side of things. Carolina goes to Atlanta in the first place game for the NFC South.
Good God.
Yeah, for Chicago, David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, now supposed to be in close to an even timeshare. Both are playable, but maybe not great options. I do know I actually just had to decide if I'm going to play David Montgomery or Deontay Johnson in a flex position on a very good team. But it's a consideration I have to think about is actually benching David Montgomery. That being said, Justin Fields last week looked very, very good. He might be that dart throw if you have Pat Mahomes or Justin Herbert on bye. Atlanta does have a very soft defense, so this could be a good matchup for him. And then maybe Darnell Mooney gets something going, but not a lot of faith in the passing game. Cole Kmet is a tight end sleeper, dart throw type of thing. For the Falcons, it's going to be Tyler Algier in the backfield. I don't have any faith in the passing game, so you're Drake London's, your Kyle Pitts. If you drafted Kyle Pitts, you probably feel like you still need to play him, but not the best option. I'd be more interested in Dulcich in that 9:30 London game. And then Marcus Mariota has been good at times. And again, if you have Pat Mahomes, you have Justin Herbert, could be a good streamer for this week. Or if you're in a super flex, he is a good option there. This should be a very weird game. I don't know if it's going to be high scoring or low scoring. Both these offenses can be terrible. We saw Carolina actually show up, and DJ Moore, by the way, for Carolina. Let's talk. Let's talk about the. Oh, I was talking. I went to Chicago. I'm having a problem. Carolina, all that stuff for Chicago. I'll repeat it here in a minute. Carolina, you've got Dante Foreman and DJ Moore as your fantasy options. I'm going to just stop talking and let Joel make his pick while I regroup and read Carolina and Chicago separately now.
Okay, so we're doing
Carolina, Atlanta.
We're doing Carolina, Atlanta. Yeah, just after the Panthers absolutely stunned the Bucs, and you tend to have a little bit more confidence, I think, believe it or not, in the Panthers than you do in the Falcons, as even though they tend to have two pretty potent weapons in Cordell Patterson and Kyle Pitts, they've all but vanished from the fantasy and the reality landscape. And just the fantasy owners are just like the meme of the dude walking into the room, going looking around, going, and so yeah, but because I was originally kind of leaning towards the Falcons because I know they have the easier schedule, but the easier schedule doesn't always necessarily translate to guaranteed wins because you gotta get the dub to get the dub. And as I said, believe it or not, there's just DJ Moore is actually playing a little bit better when it's with PJ Walker as opposed to Baker Mayfield. So go figure, Matt Rule gets fired. All of a sudden, everyone plays a little bit better. So, yeah, it's kind of a toss up when you're holding your nose. Which one? Got to go with the Panthers.
Yeah, Carolina with the dead cat bounce essentially from the firing of Matt Rule and the trading of Christian McCaffrey and Robbie Anderson got the win last week, but I don't think they're going to surprise Atlanta the same way. I don't think Atlanta's going to roll over and die the same way Tampa Bay did last week. I think Atlanta has a lot more to play for. They want to win this division. They see it's a possibility right now. And if they can get that running game going and get a lead, they're very tough to come back on because they kill the clock with that running game. I'm going to take Atlanta. As much as I'd like to see 8 weeks into the season, a 3-5 team in first place in a 3-way tie, we can actually have a 4-way tie for first if New Orleans and Carolina win this week, which is really weird. But yeah, I'm going to take Atlanta to not let that happen. All right, now we'll go to Chicago and Dallas again. Justin Fields, possibly a good option, not as good of a matchup against
So now
Dallas.
we're in Chicago now. We're not in
Yes.
Carolina anymore.
Yes,
We're
against Dallas,
we
not
go
quite as good of a matchup,
Chicago.
but could be a streaming option for you still. Montgomery and Herbert still flex worthy, but maybe not your main starters. And Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney on the outside. For Dallas, no Zeke Elliott expected. He is listed as doubtful. Jerry Jones, again, said he was going to be out. Not a big surprise after that knee injury on Sunday. So Tony Pollard becomes a slam dunk smash play. Got to get him in your lineup. Chicago is one of the worst run defenses in the league, and Dallas has a good enough defense to keep this game scoring down for Chicago so they can run the ball throughout. Des Bryant should be good to go, or not. I'm having a hard day on names. CD Lamb, the other 88.
If we had sound bites, we would need the from Curly from the Three Stooges. I'm trying to think, but nothing's happening.
Yeah, Marvin Ingram or Mike Irwin or whatever his name is. Michael Irvin, that guy. He's out there. No, the 88 that they have now is CD Lamb. Michael Gallup is a dart throw, and Dalton Schultz has been hurt every week. He plays, gets hurt again, so tread lightly there. Again, I can't think of names and words, so I'm going to let Joel talk.
Names and words and names and stuff.
There's no alcohol in there, by the way. This is just soda.
Justin Fields was much better than expected against a tough Patriots offense. Definitely is a viable play against the Cowboys, believe it or not, and maybe even going forward. He's still not supporting a consistent enough fantasy play in the passing game. And yeah, when you tend to compare both quarterbacks, Dak Prescott, and you're comparing Justin Fields, I tend to want to lean more. Even if he may not have the services of Ezekiel Elliott, he still has Tony Pollard, who is a definite, serious weapon at the position. And I got to go with Dim Boys. It's also not the playoffs. So.
Yeah, Dallas has to be favored here. They are starting to fall a little bit back in that division with the Eagles. Looking at the Eagles schedule, I don't see a lot of losses in the next few weeks. So Dallas needs to keep pace by winning all of their games. Chicago is a good team has to beat. So I do think Dallas gets it done. I think it's a slightly lower scoring game than you're hoping for fantasy reasons, but I think Tony Pollard is going to have a good game. And with any luck, the Bears will keep up and at least keep it interesting. Moving on, the Dolphins go to Detroit to play the Lions. 51.5 point over under right now. This one has all the makings of a potential shootout. Dolphins defense, they were talked about very heavily Sunday night. Their secondary was beat up outside of Xavier Howard. Then they lose Brandon Jones for the season to a knee injury as well. So this Dolphins secondary, not great. In comes one of the better offenses in the league, at least early season. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Swift in the backfield. Both going to be very good options.
Swift is off the injury report. Yoo-hoo!
Yes.
As there was rejoicing all across the land.
Yes, Swift will be back for the first time, and it seems like I think it's since before the hurricane, at least, which was 1 month ago today. So it's been a while since we've seen Swift out there.
Across the kingdom, you can hear the horns rejoicing in celebration.
Saying I have 0 shares of Swift. I'm not super excited to see him come back to action because I'm playing against him. Yeah, she is. DeAndre Swift is in my wife's lineup. So is Mike Evans, so we're not too worried. Anyways, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Hawkinson, Goff is a streaming option here. DeAndre Swift, even players like Khalif Raymond might get some potential with DJ Chark out for a very long time. For the Dolphins, Raheem Mostert, Tua Tagovailoa. Obviously, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill in your lineup. Mike Gesicki is that tight end play you could put out there and hope for the best. This should be an absolute high-scoring barn burner game. Chase Edmonds could be a daily play if you want to go contrarian somewhere in those big prize pools, but no guarantee he gets the work. But Detroit has a terrible, terrible defense. Miami's offense is very explosive. So I expect some fireworks in this one. The question is, can Detroit score? We saw Miami's defense shut them down, and who gets the win?
Yeah, because you had the big concern with the Dolphins last week was that the Dolphins were held scoreless by the Steelers in the second half. But I tend to think a much better week is coming against that hapless Lions defense. And also, you've got that Dolphins pass offense that just came out unbelievably hot with double T. And as a bonus, you have Raheem Mostert, who just absolutely owns the backfield right now and should be considered a solid fantasy RB2. So yeah, I don't see too many people going, yeah, you know what? I'm going to be picking the Lions. Yeah, no, I gotta go with Miami Dolphins. What the hopefully back with Tua now at quarterback and he stays healthy and they can get something going because God knows the team that's somewhat north of them is having some struggles.
Yeah, Miami is 4-0 in games Tua Tagovailoa finishes. So I do expect them to put up a good performance. I think we saw what the Dolphins could do at the high end against the Ravens in the fourth quarter and early against that Pittsburgh Steelers defense. The Steelers do have a good defense. Let's not forget that when they started shutting things down, they figured some stuff out. Dolphins still won that game. Detroit's defense is not Pittsburgh's defense. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Raheem Mostert, I expect to explode. And by extension, that means Tua should have a good game. Tua's second game back, full week of practice. He's out of that concussion protocol. You saw him ducking his head in on runs that made everybody cringe, whether you're a Dolphins fan or not. I think this is going to be a big win for Miami. I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game for them and a fantasy gold mine if you have any of their players. I do know I've got in a daily contest Raheem Mostert as a discount running back play because he could go for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns if things break the correct way. So we're both on Miami there, and we move on to Arizona at Minnesota. All right, so no James Conner. That means Eno Benjamin is likely going to be the starter. Darrell Williams is the other player there that could be in the lineup. He is a game-time decision, but I think Benjamin's going to get all the work. So if you need a running back, a good option there. Kyler Murray is going to be in the starting lineup, as well as DeAndre Hopkins and Zach Ertz at this point, I think has to be started. Robbie Anderson, Rondale Moore, dart throws, but could be fantasy viable. Remember, no Marquise Hollywood Brown. This offense is going to need a second wide receiver. That's what they needed when they didn't have Hopkins. Now they don't have Brown. Someone's going to have to step up. For the Vikings, don't get cute. Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook in your lineup. Adam Thielen. I think Adam Thielen has his best game of the season this week because Arizona's secondary is terrible, but they're very good about shutting down the number one. Adam Thielen is not the number one here, so I think he's going to have some potential to explode. And I think Kirk Cousins might get his first 3-touchdown game in this one as well. So another good streaming option this week if you are out Herbert or Mahomes. Arizona, 3-4, looked so much better last week against the Saints, but Minnesota is a step up in opposition and competition. Who gets the win here?
It's I know it's you're going okay. What about Arizona? How much confidence do you have in them? Maybe not as much as you had last year.
No, not
As
not as much.
as the streamer down. We okay. Medical to the bridge. Medical to the bridge. The
It
whole thing
hurts
about
to cough.
as the whole thing about this game is that you look about when it is. It's not in prime time. It's not even a late game, so there's absolutely zero pressure on Kirk Cousins whatsoever. I think it's a slam dunk that Minnesota gets the win here because if it was a prime time game, even a 4:24 o'clock game, I would be going, okay, I don't know, because there's a little bit more pressure, a little more in the heat of zone when it's that. But it's a 1 o'clock game. He's going to be lost in the shuffle, so it'll be one of the 9 games that people flip back and forth through. So, got to go with Kirk Cousins. No pressure, no prime time. He should sail for the win pretty easily.
Yeah, Minnesota is just a better team. Remember, their only losses to the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles in a Monday night game. So I do think Minnesota gets the win. I think they're the better team by far in this matchup. Again, I think Adam Thielen might have his best game of the season. Justin Jefferson should be good. So I think the Vikings roll pretty handily, but hopefully Arizona can put up some good points and keep up. This has a chance of being a very high scoring and very, very fantasy valuable game as well. All right, next up, Las Vegas and New Orleans. There were some trade rumors about Alvin Kamara going to the Eagles. Yeah, according to Alvin Kamara, here was the response on Twitter. Lowell wasn't interested in going nowhere. Y'all just be bored typing. So he is not getting traded, it sounds like. And he will most likely be in your lineup in this game, along with Chris Olave for the Saints. You could go Juwan Johnson at tight end. He had a good game last week. Or, of course, the dart throw of Taysom Hill. Who knows what he's going to be. For the Raiders, Josh Jacobs has to be in your lineup. Unfortunately, I'm playing him in against my wife, and I don't love that. But he's been so good of late, he has to be in your lineup. Devontae Adams coming off the illness, looks like he'll be good to go. Have to wait and see about Darren Waller. If Waller plays, he's a scary option. He could get hurt again. It's a hamstring. You never know what happens with those. He's had a couple weeks off, though. Derek Carr, Andy Dalton, probably dart throws at best, in my opinion. Both these teams have 2 wins. Again, the Saints could end up in a tie for first place at the end of the day with a win. The Raiders can't, but the Raiders gained a 2-game winning streak, get to 3-4, and at least put themselves in that wild card early season. Okay, you haven't played your way out of it yet, a la the Houston Texans or some other teams. Big game for both teams to try and salvage their season. Who gets the win?
Yeah, as you tend to look at New Orleans when they ended up playing Arizona, Andy Dalton threw 6 scores, but 2 of those were to Arizona. So you're going, wait a second, are we sure Jameis Winston isn't playing? It's like the spirit of Jameis is still out there. You have all of the injury questions with the Saints, and this is definitely another one of those hold your nose tight games, but I just can't have any confidence in the Saints at all, as much confidence as I don't have in the Raiders. You're looking solely right now at the quarterback position going, okay, Derek Carr versus whoever the bleep the Saints are going to put out. Andy Dalton chucks up the ball to the other team. We're not sure about what the health of Jameis Winston is. Taysom Hill is a absolutely wild card dice throw every time he's out there. He can either be really fantastic, like, wow, holy crap, 40 fantasy points, or it can be like, wah, wah, like he did, barely 10. So you're looking at the basic question of quarterbacks. Derek Carr is the more stable of the 2 choices, as opposed to whoever the bleep the New Orleans Saints are going to put out this week. So solely for that reason alone, I'm going to hold my nose and go for the Raiders. I don't love the pick, but I just don't have any confidence in the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, when you have 2 games like this, you don't have confidence in either team. You just kind of lean towards the healthier option. No Michael Thomas, no Jarvis Landry going to hurt that offense. And the big one, no Marshawn Lattimore. Devontae Adams looks like he's going to play. That is a huge loss when you're going up against one of the best wide receivers in football. And I think that might be the biggest difference maker on this game is Devontae Adams going up against the number 2 defensive back. And that being said, I'm on the Raiders as well. The Raiders have a nice little stretch of games here. They could make some hay and kind of get back into things. But I think Raiders get the win here and prevent what could be a 4-way tie in the top of the NFC South. All right, next up is the New England Patriots, who looked very bad on Monday night, versus the New York Jets, who lost Breece Hall this week. So it sounds like Mac Jones was going to play, but there is some loss of feeling in his foot on his sprained ankle. We'll see if that happens or goes anywhere. If it prevents him from playing, it would be Bailey Zappi, but I don't think quarterback is going to be a relevant position in this game on either side. Zach Wilson or whoever the Patriots put out, not in your fantasy lineup. Rondre Stevenson, though, I think has to be, and Damian Harris is a dart throw. Probably not the best option. For the Jets, Michael Carter, I think, is your guy this week. They're going to ride the hot hand, but James Robinson has to get into the flow of things with this new team. I do think it's going to be a massive, noticeable step down either way from Breece Hall. Don't expect either of these guys to come in and be that guy. And then at wide receiver, I don't see a good option. Tight end, maybe Hunter Henry, but nothing inspiring there for your fantasy lineup. The Jets, 5 wins. Hopefully they don't blow their season, at least if you're a Jets fan. If you're a Dolphins fan who's a game behind, tank, I don't care. But the Jets, 5-2, way above expectations right now. trying to hold on. The Patriots, 3-4, they lose this game. They could be 2 games back of the Dolphins, who are third place in the division after 8 games. So big game for New England, big game for the Jets. Who gets it done?
Yeah, because after that loss, Bill Belichick, even though he may be the master of emotions, has to be pissed beyond all belief as the Patriots offense came crashing back to earth this weekend. If they are this mediocre against the Jets in week 8, going to have to chalk up the Browns Lions results to the poor defenses. As the big question that we know if we played fantasy is, oh, Ramondre Stevenson was definitely the clear lead back. The game script may have helped, and Harris may not have been 100%, only 2 weeks removed from the hamstring injury.
Yeah.
But Stevenson should be in lineups even with Harris back, and you just know because there I was on Monday night going, come on, just get me a couple of fantasy points, Damian Harris. All I need, I had for the 10-team league. I just need to have you get me 5 flippin' fantasy points.
Boom, boom, boom,
E-
boom.
yeah, yeah,
Boom.
exactly. Fail horn sound all the way, and just that was pretty much the theme of the general week as far as fantasy goes. But yeah, that being said, I tend to think I have just a little bit more confidence in Bill Belichick, veteran coach, as opposed to rookie coach who's having a hell of a good year, hell of a good start. I think the Jets are definitely punching beyond their weight class, but this is Belichick here, and he also tends to play a little with a little bit of an abandon against the Jets, given the history between the two. So, taking that into account, I've got to choose the Pats over the Jets, especially the Jets had the Brees Hall injury, as that just has to be absolutely brutal. As I tend to think, got to go with the better coach out of the two, and with Coach Belichick.
Yeah, Robert Saleh, second-year head coach for the Jets, does seem to have gotten this team turned around, but a lot of that was Brees Hall. I think that injury is going to be deflating. They have beaten up on some bad teams and some hurt teams. Remember, they dominated the Dolphins with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. They
Yeah, because
beat
that's when
the
that's when Tua
Browns.
was out,
Yeah, they beat the Browns on an epic comeback collapse. They beat the Ravens on an epic
and the
collapse.
Browns that was with Brissett, not with Watson.
Yeah, and then you look at like your Packers games, your Broncos games, 2 teams that are dramatically underperforming. So I don't know if we have a full measure of what the New York Jets are or were, and now you lose Brees Hall. I think it's going to be very, very deflating for this team. New England, it's going to be, I think, the lowest scoring game of the week. You're probably looking at like a 13-10 style final. I mean, remember last week it was Patriots put up 14 points and the Jets game was 16-9. So this is going to be a very low scoring game. Defenses are probably your best fantasy option in this one. I agree that I think it's going to be New England. I think they're going to come out with a better mindset. I think the Jets are going to be a little defeated mentally with the loss of Brees Hall. Zach Wilson is not a passing quarterback as of yet. And the Patriots defense, even though they played very poorly on Monday night, is a pretty solid unit. I think Bill Belichick's going to really dig into them after that bad Monday night and get them going. I'm going to take the Patriots as well. And we move on to the last undefeated team, the Philadelphia Eagles, hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. For the Steelers, you're going to probably have to play Najee Harris. It's a terrible matchup. If you have other options, if you have other good options, you might consider benching him, but most people do not have better options than Najee Harris either way. I don't think you can play Kenny Pickett. You might go for George Pickens or Deontay Johnson at wide receiver. This is probably going to be a pass-happy second half for the Steelers to cape into this game. For the Eagles, Miles Sanders, even in the DFS maybe, you can look at like a Kenny Gainwell or Boston Scott because it could get garbage time real fast. Jalen Hurts is going to be in your lineup. I think Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and Dallas Goedert are your 4 main plays here for the Eagles. And the Eagles defense that has been very, very good should be in your lineup as well. Eagles looking to go to 7-0 before a Thursday night matchup with the Texans in week number 9. Pittsburgh, intrastate rivalry. These 2 teams, even though they only play once every 4 years, usually put up a good game. Usually it has some fireworks in it. But the question is, can the Steelers defense keep the Eagles in check enough for that offense to do what they did against Tampa Bay, just enough.
Because the main thing here that is that Kenny Pickett is looking like a limited range passer. The Steelers' offense isn't really that much better with him, but it does make the passing game more viable with high attempts and a lot of short receptions to bulk PPR scores. But that being said, when you're comparing that to what Jalen Hurts can do in the air and on the ground, it's just hands down, it has to be the Eagles. It may be more of a defensive battle, especially with the way the Steelers can put up a fight. But I tend to think the Eagles can punch home a win on this one. Definitely stressing punching with, as you say, there will definitely be fireworks in this game. But you also have the fact that the Eagles will be pumped up with the Philadelphia Phillies being in the World Series. So that should add just a little bit of extra. I'm not sure what you would call it, sort of kind of in the intangible energy that's in the background in the city going for back with when Tampa Bay was actually good, when we had like the Bucs in the Super Bowl, Lightning in the Stanley Cup, and it's sort of it's contagious, and I think the Eagles are going to siphon off a little bit of that energy, and I think that plus with what their offense can do, when their defense can stand up to the bullies of the Steelers and punch home a win.
Yeah, Phillies in the World Series. Like I said, Philadelphia plays Houston next Thursday night. Would be between games 5 and 6 of the World Series between the same two cities. So, an interesting thing there. I agree that Philadelphia is the better team. I think they get this win. TJ Watt's injury return window is open. He's got 21 days to get returned to the active roster, or he'll miss the rest of the season. So the Steelers might be getting some reinforcements on defense. But when it comes to this week, I think that Eagles' offense is too good. That defense is going to be better than Miami was last week, and they struggled to beat that offense for the Steelers as well. Kenny Pickett looks like a rookie who's learning. I think he's going to be a very good one down the line. They still do not have a good offensive line in Pittsburgh, and that is hurting him. That's got to be the focus in the offseason. But Philadelphia looks to be going to 7-0. Houston on the docket next. They want to pretty much try and keep this division at bay because the Giants are a one-loss team, and Dallas is just a couple games back as well. They trip up, that division can catch them very quickly. So Philadelphia has a lot to play for. They've got a lot of good vibes in the city, and I think Philadelphia gets a win over their interstate rivals. Next up, it's the Titans and the Texans. Both running backs in this matchup, Derrick Henry and Dameon Pierce, are must starts for your roster. They have been two of the top 10 running backs on the season, and both have already, at least Dameon Pierce has had it. No, they both had a bye. Both have already had their bye week. So if you have both of them, you're good on bye weeks the rest of the season at running back. At the wide receiver position, maybe Brandon Cooks. He is questionable this week. Maybe Robert Woods, but there's not a lot there. I think it really begins and ends at the running back position for fantasy viability. Houston, Houston's a tough team to predict. They're bad, but they did come up last year and snakebite the Titans. They do every now and again. They came up and bit the Chargers, helped them miss the postseason. So Houston does show up on occasion and punch above their weight class. Is this an opportunity for Houston to shock the world again?
Yeah, especially I know you have to be concerned with the Ryan Tannehill injury, but the key thing is that you need to look at the fact that David Mills had a productive day last week from behind the game script, but it still didn't make any of his receivers good plays. And right now, you can consider Mills a second tier Mahomes Herbert by replacement play that, going, but, now that the buys are done. I don't see you going. I'm starting David Mills this week and with confidence. I mean, if that's your quarterback, that's when you got to do some deep dumpster diving and go on the waiver wire. But all that being said, even with the question of the what's going on with Tennessee Titans and the quarterback, I tend to think that Derrick Henry and the offense with whoever the heck is going to be behind the O line for the Tennessee Titans, whether it's Ryan Tannehill, whether it's somebody else. I think they can hobble enough together to somehow get a win. Although I wouldn't be surprised with a Houston Texans win, especially with how this year has gone. But I just cannot pick the Texans with confidence and got to pick the Titans.
Speaking of dumpster diving, I am on the fence between starting Aaron Rodgers or Davis Mills in our 16 teamer
Oh, good God.
because Aaron Rodgers has just been that bad. He's still in the starting lineup as of right now, but it's been not great.
Is
I'm
that
going to take
is,
Tennessee as well.
is that when you change your name from the South Florida Sharks to the South Florida Dumpsters?
I mean, I could change the dumpster fire, but I'm somehow still fourth place at 5-2. I don't understand it. I don't necessarily like it because this is a very bad team. I'm game out of first, but I scored almost 300 points less than the guy in first place. So, yeah, it's been an interesting league in that one for me. I'm going to take the Titans. I think they're just a better team. I expect Derrick Henry, who always has a big game against Houston, to have a big game against Houston. But I think Damian Pierce is going to keep this game a little bit lower scoring by controlling the offensive side for
We,
the Texans.
we would not be surprised at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and when we get to, we've been waiting all day for Sunday night. I promise I won't sing it. That the Houston Texans have upset the Tennessee Titans. I would not be surprised to see that result.
I would be surprised, but it's in the range of outcomes for sure. Houston has shown up and done it before, but I think this is a Derrick Henry monster week, and he just controls this game. Malik Willis might be interesting, um, but I think Tannehill plays, and I think that's enough. All right, next up, Washington and Indianapolis. This would be a Carson Wentz revenge game if he wasn't hurt. It's going to be Taylor Heineke. I think that actually helps Terry McLaurin be fantasy relevant again, even though Indy's got a very good defense. Brian Robinson is your running back of choice, even though Gibson has had his flashes at times. He just isn't getting enough of the workload. For the Colts, it's Jonathan Taylor, it's Michael Pittman, but you have to remember Sam Ellinger is the quarterback here. So a quarterback matchup between Sam Ellinger and Tyler Heineke. I think you look at Jonathan Taylor as the only surefire start. You're probably going to have to start Michael Pittman Jr. just because of where you drafted him. You're not going to have better options, but it's a big risk that he has a bad week. When it comes to a quarterback in the first start, you really just don't know what to expect. So this is an interesting game for me. Sam Ellinger is a big unknown. Washington looked very good behind Taylor Heineke for the final 3 quarters of the game against the Packers, getting that win. Indianapolis hasn't looked good, but it's been because of Matt Ryan for the most part and missing Jonathan Taylor. This is, I think, as much of a toss-up as we've got this week. Who do you got?
Yeah, toss up. You definitely have to go with a hot hand. And I can't believe I'm saying this because you're looking at, because Taylor Heineke, of course, threw a pick 6 in the first half and could have thrown 3 other interceptions. He did settle down, but yeah, it's hard to believe it. But he's the veteran quarterback of the 2 who are playing, and as much as I can't believe I'm saying, I've got to back the Commanders. They just beat the Packers, and I don't think you tend to have a lot of confidence in the Colts, who now they're almost basically 500 with the tie. But the Colts have had some interesting wins, but they've also had some god awful games that have left us all scratching our heads, going, "What?" So just because of the how undependable the Colts are in general. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm going against it and picking the team that you don't like, and got to go with the turds.
Yeah, the Commanders they're interesting. Taylor Heineke's been very good in his limited starts in his career. Brian Robinson looks like a running back that they can depend on, but I'm going to take the Colts. I think they're going to try and ride Jonathan Taylor as much as they can. Joel is now missing. He will be back shortly, I'm assuming. Um, but I think Jonathan Taylor is going to lead the way here. Hopefully, they can get that ground game going in force and then open up the passing game. Sam Ellinger does have more mobility in the pocket that should help with the sacks and the interceptions and the in the pocket turnovers. Here comes Joel here in a second. Um, Yeah, I'm taking the Colts here, Joel. As you disappeared because I assume it was shame from picking the Turds or the Commanders. We call them the Turds here if you're new to the show,
It was
because they didn't have a name for so long, and they're
it was either the shame or we had two dimensions cross to each other, and all of a sudden I was knocked out of phase.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons we call the Commanders the Turds. The biggest one is they didn't have a name for 2 years. The second one is their jerseys looked like turds. And the third is because they dropped actual poop water on their fans at one point in FedEx Field. So the Turds or the Commanders, whichever one you want to pick, I think they go down. They get flushed this week. And again, Jonathan Taylor hopefully opens up that passing game, and Ellinger's mobility should be a key. And also, I think Frank Wright is on the hot seat where Ron Rivera isn't. So there's more incentive to win for the Colts. They are still technically alive in their division, where the Commanders, the Turds, are just so far behind the top teams right now. So I'm going to take the Colts as the home team to squeak out a win. I think this will be a very close game, but to squeak out a win. Next up, it's San Francisco at the Los Angeles Rams. No Debo Samuel for the 49ers means George Kittle gets an even more of a bump than he normally would. And Brandon Ayuk becomes the wide receiver one. Don't forget that Christian McCaffrey is a member of the San Francisco 49ers. You should see his usage skyrocket this week versus what they did last week. Jimmy Garoppolo may be a depth play, but is in the realm of possibility. For the Rams, I think right now you ignore the running back position. It hasn't been good. Darrell Henderson's going to get the start, it looks like, if he plays. Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee, I think, are still the only two viable options in this for fantasy reasons. The Rams are 3-3. They're second place in the division because they have had their bye week already. They're the defending Super Bowl champs, and they're at home against a hated division rival. The Niners, though, made the big move to be a Super Bowl contender, not to struggle to beat their division, but to win the Super Bowl down the line. Who gets it done on Sunday?
I just tend to think that the Niners are going to get the extra boost from CMC, and he's going to help their ground game immensely. As just the Rams sort of have us all kind of scratching our heads about what's going on in general. You know, they started out strong, now they're 500, and not really dominating the division, and maybe wondering if Odell Beckham is going to come in and sort of help save the day on wide receiver land. But right now, as strong a team as the Rams seem to be, going to the Super Bowl, there definitely seems to be a little bit of a hangover this year. And I'm picking the 49ers that definitely have to have a bolster, especially with the recent addition.
Yeah, San Francisco is just so much better to me than the Rams at this point. I'm going to take the 49ers. Of course, Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford could have good weeks, but San Francisco's got a very good defense. They got embarrassed last week to the Chiefs, and I think they turn it around. And I think they do a lot better this week. Um, it's just tough to see a whole lot of hope for the Rams. All right, next up, we go to the only game between winning teams this week. And if I had told you preseason there's only going to be one, you might have went Baltimore, Tampa Bay. You might have went Arizona, Minnesota. You could have even gone Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, or San Francisco, LA, Green Bay, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Cleveland. Nope. New York Giants 6-1 going to Seattle to play the 4-3 Seattle Seahawks, and it just feels gross to say that there are two winning teams in this game, and it's the only division. There's the only matchup between two winning teams. The Giants are going to play Saquon Barkley. I think Daniel Jones is interesting in this one as a streaming start, and Wan'Dale Robinson. Keep that name in mind with the Kadarius Toney train. Could be interesting going forward. Ken Walker for the Seattle Seahawks is a must start at this point. I have a league where I'm debating between Kenneth Walker and Dameon Pierce, and I don't like it. It's just it's a tough matchup to pick here. DK Metcalf, not sure to play. Tyler Lockett coming off the hamstring. So fantasy options in this one are going to be pretty much running back heavy. But Seattle leading their division. The Giants, a game back at Philadelphia. Big stakes here. Who gets the win?
As the key thing I think we are looking here is as both quarterbacks last week Daniel Jones was unleashed as a runner, making him a strong fantasy play with a functional offense and competitive team. He's definitely looking like a QB1 going forward into the matchup with Seattle. And you wouldn't have believed that even possible before the year starting. And Geno Smith is absolutely no second tier or third tier quarterback. As I've definitely had him on some teams that he's definitely been surprising. So crazy quotes aside about people writing him off and never writing him back, he has definitely stepped up. But that being said, right now it's hard, even on the road, even going to the other side, other coast. It's hard picking against the G-men until they give us a reason to show that we can't pick them. So you got to believe in Brian Dable, got to believe in the New York Giants, and you got to believe in 6-1. And I think they're going to be 7-1 after this all is said and done.
Um, I'm going to take the Seahawks here. I think Kenneth Walker is good enough to slow down this game. I don't believe in this passing game yet. They're going to be very, very depleted in the wide receiving corner as they have been all year. Seattle's going to key in on stopping Saquon Barkley and keep this game, hopefully for them, lower scoring. Um, I'm going to take Seattle. I just think the home team, that long cross country flight is in the time zone difference going to hurt the Giants a little bit more than Seattle. So I'll take Seattle. This should be a good game, but I'm going to take the home team here. Then we go to Sunday Night Football, Green Bay at Buffalo. I think we were expecting a better game than this, at least in the standings. The Packers 3-4 going to the 6-1 Bills, 5-1 Bills. Sorry, they had the bye week last week. Aaron Rodgers, I just said earlier, I'm debating between him and Davis Mills for week number 8, and that's not a place you want to be if you're Aaron Rodgers or my fantasy team. So I think the only viable option for the Packers is going to be Aaron Jones. But if they get blown out, it could just be a pass-happy second half, and then Romeo Doubs and Sammy Watkins get interesting, as those are the best wide receivers for Green Bay this week. Robert Tonyan also a name to keep in mind for the Bills. Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, all in your lineup. Gabe Davis probably in your lineup. Devin Singletary should get a lot of second half work if the game goes according to the plus minus. The point spread is 10.5 in favor of Buffalo. Last I saw, it could be even higher now. So if the Bills start to run away with this, you'll see a lot of Devin Singletary. You probably have a shot of seeing backups in this game down the line. So Diggs, even Dawson Knox. There's a lot of good options for Buffalo. And the Buffalo defense might be sneaky good against Green Bay. Buffalo right now looks like the class of the AFC. Green Bay looks like they need to go to school and learn from a team like this. Aaron Rodgers said, hey, no one believes in us. Maybe that's the best thing for us. I don't think going into Buffalo in a big nationally televised game is the best thing. But hey, I'm not Aaron Rodgers, so maybe his opinion means more than I do. But who gets the win here?
Yeah, because I never thought I'd be saying this, but Aaron Rodgers remains ineffective as a downfield passer, and the Packers often suffered for it against a weak defense. Says you're just still going. How did the Commanders, the freaking Commanders, beat the Packers? Plus, in a team that is already dealing with problems with wide receivers. You have Alan Lazard suffered a shoulder injury, left the game, and his week for his availability for a Buffalo is unknown. So it's just normally you would don't think pick the Packers, but they just had a stunning loss to the Commanders. They're down a key critical piece in one of their wide receiver core, and you're going that against Josh Allen and a Buffalo Bills team that's ready to absolutely stampede all over them. And I just don't feel any confidence picking the Packers this week, especially when they lost to the Commanders, and I think they're going to have a slump.
Yeah, it's real hard to see a way the Packers win this game. Buffalo, coming off the bye, have had 2 weeks to prepare for a very underwhelming and struggling Packers offense and team as a whole. The Bills have one of the best offenses and best defenses in the league. Josh Allen has been absolutely electric. They've got wide receivers. They, I think, have just every aspect of the game, other than maybe Aaron Jones over Devin Singletary, I think every other aspect of the game, the Bills are just better in. And unfortunately for them, the difference between Singletary and Jones is nowhere near enough to compensate for the lacking elsewhere. So Buffalo wins this. I said I'm not picking against Buffalo unless they are severely outclassed. And frankly, they are just nowhere near the same competition um, that the Buffalo Bills are in Green Bay. So I'm going to take Buffalo in what probably is not going to be a great Sunday night game. And then we move to Monday night, the last one of the week. Cincinnati at Cleveland. Likely, not a guarantee, but it seems like no Jamar Chase, even though he did play last week through it. With that being said, Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, both in your lineups, as well as T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd coming off of the obscurity list, essentially, now as the number 2 wide receiver for the Bengals. Again, if Jamar Chase is out. Hayden Hurst, an interesting option at the tight end position. For the Browns, Nick Chubb, probably end of list. Maybe Amari Cooper gets something going. They're going to likely have to pass in this game. So Cleveland fighting to keep their season at all relevant. Cincinnati now has to win to keep up with Baltimore, who gets it done on Monday night.
Yeah, because Joe Burrow and his offense is definitely peaking. He's back to the record-setting level of production he hit late last season, and the team barely threw the ball in the second half. Now, that being said, with the loss of Jamar Chase, we don't know how long it's going to be because all of a sudden, as you said, he was going on IR. Now he isn't going on IR, so it's going to be up to T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. Now, if it was against a better team, you might be sweating it out a little bit more. But I don't think we would call the 2-5 Browns at this juncture a better team. I know that they can definitely come up with a surprise win here and there, but not consistently. And I think even with the loss of Jamar Chase, the Cincinnati Bengals still have enough weapons. They can get the job done, even going to the dog pound. Got to pick Cincinnati.
Yeah, Cincinnati looks like a wave ready to roll in the AFC to compete with the Kansas Cities and Buffaloes for that trip back to the Super Bowl. I don't think the loss of Jamar Chase is going to be as big as it sounds. Cleveland's a good matchup to be running into when you're losing a player of that caliber, too. Like we mentioned, Breece Hall is going to bring this team down by losing him. I think Jamar Chase is a team that's going to rally without him to make sure he has a good week. So I'm going to take Cincinnati, and that's going to wrap up our picks segment. Now, let me see if I can get this to work for you, Joel, because
And
I know.
warning, there is an S bomb in it. So, everyone, there is some not safe for work language.
All right. Well, let's see. I'm going to just bring this up. Let's see if we can get this to operate. We've tried this before. Hasn't always worked. So, final thought for Joel is a video. Make sure the sound is up on this, and let's roll it.
And no sound.
The sound's going through my headset.
I'm not hearing anything. So, what it is, it's a interesting. I think it's a Steve Smith. Is it senior or junior?
It's Steve Smith Sr., and I can explain what's going on
Okay,
because I have the sound going.
Go ahead and narrate.
So it's Steve Smith asking Cam Newton, should he play DJ Moore, who is standing directly next to him in fantasy when DJ Moore was a rookie. And you see DJ Moore sitting there going, you son of a mother. And they're just talking about how bad of a player, how good of a player he is. So, yeah. Steve Smith insulting rookie wide receiver DJ Moore.
And DJ Moore says, "Yeah,
DJ Moore says,
start me." And then Smith goes, "Yeah, if you score me 2 points, I'm going to slap the bleep out of you."
Yeah,
I censored it.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're still working out some of the kinks with this program to get the sound to go. But yeah,
Steve
Smith.
I just thought that was something a little bit different, just because of how fantasy centric we tend to be, and I just found that so hilarious. And I don't know, should I start him? It's like, I'm standing right here, dude.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
not too many people I think could talk to an NFL player and not have them slap them or hit them back.
yeah, it's definitely an interesting way to go. Um, let's see. Final thought. What to talk about? There's a lot going on. We could talk baseball. We could talk trade deadline. We
We
could
could
talk a lot of
You
stuff.
could also talk about your story previously, the bad fate for Brittany Griner.
I could talk about her getting sentenced to 9 years in prison. I don't expect that to stick, but yeah, 9 years in prison for drug smuggling into Russia. Fun fact: if you're going to Russia, don't take drugs
Mm,
of
mm,
any kind, whether or not they're
mm.
legal in this country for you to have. Um, let's talk. Let's talk about Robert Quinn getting traded to the Philadelphia Eagles and Roquan Smith's reaction to that. It shows the brotherhood of NFL players just breaking down into tears during a press conference when he found out that Robert Quinn was
Yeah, that
traded.
that was definitely a powerful moment.
And Robert Quinn mutually agreed to cut off the final 2 years of his contract with the Eagles to be a free agent. But yeah, Roquan Smith, very upset when he left Chicago, broke down in tears after a very big win for the Bears. It kind of feels like just kind of pulling the rug out from a team that's coming off of a high. But Eagles, there was rumors about them going after Alvin Kamara. Doesn't sound like that's going to happen. They are making the moves to be a good team. But yeah, just a touching moment between teammates or former teammates at this point when he got traded. So if you haven't seen that clip, go watch it. It is interesting. And also, if you are if you're this kind of person or woman, Tom Brady is now single and lives in Tampa. So if anybody wants to be the rebound, he is now officially available in
I
Pennsylvania.
saw,
So
not surprisingly, AB was trolling Tom Brady and actually trolling the Bucs a little bit. So nice to hear that he's still staying classy. Not.
yeah, AB, $1.2 million settlement from his assault on the moving van company. So good job, AB. You're definitely winning by trolling a man going through a life altering divorce when you're paying $1.2 million because you had to hit a mover. Um, that really probably should have been the final thought. But yeah, Antonio Brown still a pile of S, the bleeped out version of what Steve Smith would call him. Yeah. Anyways,
I
that's it
don't think
done.
you would find too many people that would disagree with you.
No, I mean I'm sitting here wearing a Ray Rice jersey and going, it's not a great look, but it's the Ravens jersey I have. Plus, if you look at the video, the woman does charge an NFL running back in an elevator to attack him, and he just kind of defends himself. So, uh, Antonio Brown's just a pile of trash. There's no like, well, this happened. No, he's just a garbage person across the board. There's no redeeming. There's no, well, I mean, yes, Ray Rice is a bad person for laying out his girlfriend in the elevator. Um, and he got the punishment he deserved. But Antonio Brown is just a
He just keep
human
he just
fecal matter.
keeps doing stuff.
I think there's a difference between reacting when someone charges you, even if it's your girlfriend or wife or boyfriend or whoever the relation is. Someone charges you to attack you in an elevator. There's a reaction that would happen. Joel, if you charged me in an elevator, I would react a certain way, and it wouldn't be, "Hey man, what are you doing?" It would be to stop you from attacking me. Antonio Brown, there's no redeeming quality. There's no, I kind of see where they're coming from, and it maybe gets out of hand. It's just like, why are you attacking movers? Why are you trolling a man who has stuck his neck out for you
He
time
was
and time again
I
while
think
he's going through a divorce?
I think he trolled both Tom and he also trolled Giselle too.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. AB probably tried to nail Giselle, and she's like, "I'm married to Tom," and now he's like, "Well, now I'm upset." So now he's being an a-hole because that seems like the kind of thing Antonio Brown would do, because he's a classless scumbag who needs to be extinguished from the face of the earth. Also, he's similar to Kanye West, who apparently is getting dropped from all of his record deals because he's a huge fan of Hitler. But that is a different story for a different podcast. Don't like Hitler, kids. Hitler was a pile of crap. And that's the
Yeah,
nicest thing I
yeah.
can say about him.
There was actually a story because I was listening to somebody from the streamer uh, who does a stream about World of Warships game. And one of the things they happen to do is every once in a while they open up what's called a super test, academy where you can help the game designers test new ships behind the scenes. And apparently, their streamer named Killerman was sharing a story that apparently the one of the shortest ever tenures of somebody in the super test program was about 30 seconds because they apparently decided to reference Hitler. So, yeah,
There are plenty of acceptable ways to reference Hitler if you're talking about like historical things that have occurred or people that should have died a lot sooner than they did. But when you are in the form of Kanye West saying I love, no, you deserve everything that's coming to you, because yes, it was 80 years ago, but come on, man. Like
still.
I would like to see Antonio Brown and Kanye West in a bare knuckle boxing match to the death, because at least one of them is no longer here afterwards. Yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it, because I think it's something we can all agree on. Anyways, that's our time. I'm Flying Ryan Gilchrist, along with
Tampa Motormouth. I would say before we gone off the rails, but we've gone way the hell off the rails.
We went off the rails real hard there at the end, but hey, it's still entertaining enough. So we'll be back next week. We'll cover what happens the rest of week 8. We'll probably talk a little bit about the World Series. We might have a winner. Technically, I mean, they could sweep them and be done by Wednesday next week or Thursday.
We'll see if the Bengals can actually win, and whether or not the Texans can win. Maybe not.
Trade deadline is on Tuesday, so there will be some moves between now and then. Usually the NFL trade deadline, not super exciting, but anything that happens, we'll cover that as well. I expect we get one more big deal. Cam Akers still on the block. Antonio Gibson's had some rumors. Alvin Kamara or Kareem Hunt at the running back position.
I think Ron Rivera. I saw a post from Ron Rivera.
Yeah, Ron Rivera said
going,
no.
And no, we are not trading him.
You know what? We're not using Gibson, but neither is anybody else. I think the exact quote on that one. So with that, we go.